There were people shouting, screaming. And then someone was walking around in the corridor, knocking on doors, saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Whether there's actually something going on or they're playing pranks, this is a very volatile and dangerous place to be. All the criminal things that I've been reporting about Zubir Francis are still going on with me. That was short-lived, and probably on this ward, as I suspected, because someone walked towards an area laughing. I suspect it could have been a prank. A prank was pulled on me when I was lost on the other ward in Kalo. A patient suggested to a staff member, lock her in, let's see what she'll do. On that ward, they weren't as territorial as the patients on this ward are. Earlier on, all the staff had to attend to one person. Another person was carrying the tray. I think they had to give her medication or something. And then we were left on the ward altogether. All I had to do was send an email. The nurse said she was going to come and see me. I was so tired from my previous self-care thing. So I thought, okay, give you the benefit of the doubt. They might be coming around to call you out anyway. Because at 9 o'clock they always do. Well, twice they haven't. When I've gone to sleep early. Let me check the time. Oh my. It's 21:40. I guess that's it then. I'll go to sleep early. They won't wake me up. There's been so much shouting in the corridor. Oh gosh. So ladies on this ward test each other. Test each other's boundaries. Very territorial. In the morning it sounds like it's a daily exercise. To act tough. So that the others don't jump you or something. It is basically like prison. Except these ladies actually really need their attention. The other morning they were actually demanding their medication. They know they should be here for medication. I, on the other hand, don't need any medication. I was offered medication to deal with criminal activity. Medication to deal with criminal activity. It's one thing to acknowledge that, okay, the events you're experiencing are stressful. But it's inappropriate to offer me a pill for it. Because when it comes to stress, I am managing stressful situations. So there's no need for it. Like I just mentioned earlier, I had my pampering session with the fewest ingredients ever. But I did it well enough and comfortably enough for me to feel that, okay, now I needed to rest. High walls. I don't know if you can see. High walls, freedoms removed. Can't go anywhere. I requested earlier that I need to be going to church. I've got to go to the parish tomorrow. Could you at least send the consultant an email? There was all this talk about, no, if you're at work, You wouldn't want anyone emailing you. It would still be necessary when people email you. I have worked in the NHS. I am still a nurse, so I get it. When there's need for communication, yes, you do email each other. And the person they're supposed to be emailing is a consultant. However, well, that's their choice. But my choice was I needed my appeal to be seen by hospital managers. And yesterday they were all here. The manager, the ward manager, and the matron was in the break room on this ward. And she heard us talking about her in this ward, in the corridor, waiting for her. Because the other manager apparently was in a meeting. One of the nurses lied that the doctor on the ward round had not been there. And Gerald rather said, no, there were doctors before. All these people must be qualified to deal with things like this. Excuse me. The nurses know I'm independent, I shouldn't be here. I was being offered cooking lessons. If you've seen in any of my other videos, I was presenting some food, I was trying to raise money, offering cooking and stuff on the channel, offering events management, events consultation, emceeing for events, so that we raise money. I'm grateful for those who did contribute the money because my husband is out of the kidnapping situation. They came to my house on Tuesday morning. I lied that my family had sent them. I've since known that the first time they did it, it wasn't my family. My family was intimidated into behaving a certain way towards me. Sometimes they'll just be called. Early morning, you have to come. What I now know is, in 2023, Zubir Francis had actually already hacked me and was tracking my family, communicating with some people in the council. They were giving my family hell over a property we used to own on Rose Lane, Chadohis. So they even got to the point where they were experiencing a lawsuit. I had once asked them, let me take over that property so that we can rent mine out. We didn't agree quickly enough. Little did I know, he was tracking them. He had already hacked them and was causing them a lot of wahala there. They could never win with the demands of the tenants, with the demands of the council. And it quickly escalated into £13,000, £15,000 lawsuits. When I went to hide out there, well, I just went for laundry in the winter. But I overstayed a few nights. Someone I shared the room with experienced all this kind of advanced technology attacks that I'm experiencing. I remember her swiveling in the bed so much that I almost fell off the bed. Quite a huge double bed, almost king-size bed. It is assault. In the United Kingdom, there's a woman who used to live alone. There was a case that was presented in a newspaper article. A Caucasian woman was living alone and she was being sexually assaulted. This is not a new thing where people are using and advancing technology for criminal purposes. On the day they actually came to my flat and removed me and brought me here, I got a police escort like a villain, like a psychopath. The type of escort that Zubir Francis actually needs to have going to Broadmoor. So for months they've been plotting to get me arrested because apparently he's a mental health patient who he cares for in flat 4. Apparently she's a witch and she hates that I pray, and she's not been able to do anything to me while I'm in my property. So they pretended to be my family and called the mental health team. What doctors didn't know and what I didn't say in the moment what I remembered, unfortunately, while I was in here, is that between the hours of 4 and 5, I had been working overnight on the app still to raise some money because my husband needs to replace some money that was contributed and his ticket had been submitted as collateral. And so I suggested he go the embassy route, but I think that would send him back to America. And actually, eventually I've agreed with it and thought, you know what, just go and come back. I really don't mind it because this is crazy. For someone to be saying, this girl needs to be out there in the public, let's get people more aggressive around her so we get her arrested. And that's failed. Let's get her more surrounded by people outside so that it looks like she was trying to steal something. Let's get her surrounded outside. You know, they have a network. They've even sent me an assassin once and told me, the girl, black girl, she came and sat on a bench where I was sitting, pretending she was on the phone or like she was listening to something and just addressing me basically and telling me they'd be infecting as many of my friends and affiliates with sexual health diseases and would still be trying to kill me. The threats were quite lengthy, but that's the basics of it. As soon as she said, we'll still be trying to kill you, I brought out my phone and I was going to record her. So as I was going to record her, she quickly stood up and, like clockwork, another man landed on the bench with a little child and said, why am I opting in? I just beat my child to cover this up for that girl. I caught a glimpse of the girl anyway on my camera. But you know what happened within days? Because the girl had been sent by Zubir Francis and another girl who's a sexual health nurse, a senior nurse. She accesses the database to actually send people around with sexual health diseases to infect as many people as she can. She'd actually been addressing someone who could have been a potential friend from the church I used to attend. If that man Patrick has any courage to stand up for me one day, he might testify that the day he considered that maybe he will actually come and support my husband and I, Gamu immediately threatened him that I'm still going to find someone to give you gonorrhea. It was so automatic. They seem to have been getting along actually, because through Flat for Oak House, as I mentioned in other videos, they live broadcast and film me to the world. I think to quite a few platforms, some of them on the dark web. And that's where he broadcasts sexual assault. That's where the entertainment part. He's making money off the dark web. Perverts, sexual predators. He's quite the pedophile though. In psychology, we talk about projection, where you can actually make other people act the way that you want them to act or that you would have wanted to act, cause other people to act that way. It's almost like a mind control thing. Zubir Francis once apologized to his son that, I'm sorry, I thought you were someone else's child. He had almost sexually assaulted his son. He can be that aggressive. And together with Hannah, if they happen to agree, they can do a whole sleep paralysis movement on even men and rape them. What they used to discuss was Hannah's signal was, get it out of your system. And then that would be automated. People haven't spoken up about the abuse. I wonder why. Because where people do not disclose that they've got sexual health diseases, even after you find out, that's criminal. So apparently if you've been going through Flat for Oak House and then they've paid you some money after assaulting you, or you've tried to act as if you weren't raped, you've done yourself a great injustice, because you really should have just rushed to the police station, got urgent treatment. Most people, when they find out, they feel like killing themselves. Like the young man they live with, he's in his early 20s, Zayn. They're grooming him now to learn how to use that advanced technology to attack people. For a week, he was dropping people to the ground. I was in the Mercury Mall, walking towards the escalator, when an elderly woman dragging one of those trolley bags and something else. Very heavy bags though. She must have had a day of shopping. But she ran ahead of me. And I thought it was weird because the escalator was right next to the lift. Would have been a bit more comfortable. But these guys have such a weird, cruel sort of way of looking at bullying. Maybe that pissed them off. So she fell. I had to employ the whole emergency service thing. Catch her so she wouldn't hit her head. And I helped her. So when I've helped her, shouted help and they stopped the escalator and everything. I made sure she was safe, and then the manager and the security people arrived to help her and get an ambulance. She wasn't very comfortable with me helping her. You know, all this chocolateness. But I was okay. At least I made her safe. And then off they took her, and I went about my business anyway. So in the moment, the rationale as someone who knows healthcare, we both just assumed hypertension, that her blood pressure must have fallen at high altitude. Only to get back to my flat and hear that actually they'd done it. And my confirmation was the next day I was out in Romford networking, as I do, and possibly just connecting to the Wi-Fi because I was having so many challenges with them hacking my internet and laughing that I was fighting hackers. And sometimes it sounds like they're trying to compliment me that, you know, she could have been a hacker. And then sometimes they discuss things like how to make me sound like an accomplice or like I'm part of them as a criminal. It's not a compliment. If you've learned the basics of ICT skills, IT skills, which I have, numeracy skills too. Also, I'm a systems person. My background is setting up systems, admin and accounting systems. For years I was doing that. So yeah, I can explore a phone function and see how to do things, but I'm not a hacker. I once found that when I was trying to connect my phone to my laptop on WhatsApp, a common thing that kept on coming on the notification, I never used to have that, was that 4 gadgets were already loaded. So it was impossible for me to add any other technical gadget. How is it possible that you show people this, you show officers this? Eventually, and people don't act promptly, they don't believe you. Well, I'll give you this one example. If people have been caught on your patio before, or cautioned about getting on your property before, and then because they were intimidating you, these guys went on to tell people that actually she's our child. Or sometimes they told them that actually she's our childminder because they would send their children to play on your patio. And then if they've been so intimidating and crush on your walls every second you get towards that shared wall, not that you live together, you're just in a different property, and you want to wear why you can hear each other when they talk. And yet for 5 years, they've actually been filming you after burgling their flat. They've actually been burgling you and stealing a lot of information. First, perhaps, for just the kicks of it. First, perhaps, for just, testing me. Apparently, when Zubir Francis used to greet me in the corridor, he was testing me for access. He was trying to see how I would react. He said he was doing it for access and he couldn't kill me. doing it for access to check how he could access me. At some point, he started doing these things where he could not actually respond to me if I talk to him outside within a certain radius of our property, my property. Because I remember coming back towards my flat and they started walking so fast with his little boy Adam. I think that was a bit of a surprise to Adam, because Adam used to respond to me. But on the day, Zubir just prompted him to turn into the communal garden entranceway. And instead of going through the main door, but I was about to turn that way. And they're walking so fast away from me. They didn't greet me that day. They're walking so fast away from me as if he's running away from something. Now, I actually wanted to test them that day. If I'm not mistaken, it was because the intimidation tactics may have begun. And I was wondering what was going on. So that was the first time I initiated like a random chit-chat moment, because I wanted to find out how he would react. They walked away so fast from me. And that is quite a common response now. Should I stand in my patio doors when they come out to play? Such as on Christmas Day, this last Christmas gone. They had so many guests who had suddenly appeared, who were probably celebrating Eid, considering the way they were adorned. But Zubir Francis has said he's not a Muslim, he's a radicalist. And he laughed about totally having a hand in blowing up Air India, because there were people on that plane who knew too much about what he was doing. So some people have been intimidated into silence. Some people have been intimidated into compliance. Regardless, it's not immunity from Zubir's cruelty. He has a habit of going after evidence, of apparently deleting evidence. He and Hannah can kill people easily. There's a man apparently who gave Hannah an egg sandwich. So he found out that Hannah is allergic to egg, and she quickly deleted the evidence. For weeks, we could not access the bin storage area. We can now talk about it, because it's now clear from their confessions, admissions of what's been happening. But at the time, it wasn't clear why we could not access the bin storage area and why Zubir was always crashing into the doors there. Hannah was feeding, pun intended. Because where did the body go? Why did the owner of the keys, a bunch of keys, with a big hoop that looked like a jailer's hoop, with communal keys like an FB2 key and other main door keys, which were not really the ones that open our communal doors? I tried them out. I had to wash them out because I had touched them. I kept them and called the police to come and check them out. But when the police arrived, they were really distracted and started questioning me about other things. So I didn't report it in the end. As they left, I was thinking, wait, I called them. Why have they been going on about this? And you know what? Maybe an hour later, I realized, the keys. I wanted them to see the keys. I wanted to show them and tell them that I found these keys. But I was so intimidated, there's no way I would have walked to the police station with them. And so I went to put them back. Those keys disappeared pretty fast after I put them there. And I put them on a white cloth so that they were much more obvious. I wonder who took them. But the crew of bin storage serviceman, the councilman, was changed promptly. I went over and lived at the other side of Romford, RM3. Even in that crew, I never saw the men that I used to see in RM7. Even last year, They're still a different crew. Those men must be traumatized. I'm not sure what they may have seen in the 5 weeks because our bins were not collected. And they were not arriving. So Havering Council, I don't know, someone must know something. However, with the advanced technology attacks, Mr. Gerald Tegede was invited to Flat for All House. He walked over my patio. For the first time, I was actually glad to hear his voice. I lifted my head, quite excitedly that, oh my God, maybe someone familiar now that I might be able to talk to about what's happening here. He was walking past my patio into Flat for Oak House, saying, well, so I teach Tonderai Jesu. It means, well, I'm not afraid, I belong to Jesus. He had been warned about a witch in Flat for Oak House. Long story short, my excitement quickly became terror. I kept my head down a bit, just to try and find out why he was being introduced into Flat for Oak House. Gerald Tonderai Tegede, Elder Gerald Tonderai Tegede, with all due respect, I realized you were being trained how to use that technology to beat the hell out of me. I think that did it. That locked me into silence for a while. He used to be my finance director. I was a provincial general secretary for 3 years in an office that I had to go and set up. We had random audits, people checking my financial records and that very thoroughly, finding 2p discrepancies apparently. I was on it. I worked really hard. And I tried so much to get an assistant. Finally, when it happened, the assistant threw me under the bus. A week later, someone expressed regret for letting me go instead of that lady. They made me redundant. Said they couldn't afford keeping 2 people. It was time to move on anyway, I suppose. That's how you comfort yourself, isn't it? I dare not say it was God's timing. However, I moved on and went back into education. Redirection. But Gerald Tegede was so hostile, even back then. So yes, you would be surprised that I saw him and thought I might be rescued this time. So many people had been down the corridors, across the patio, into Flat for Oak House. Some people had actually run away when things were being demonstrated. Many people actually, especially the Asians. And I think sometimes there were doctors. Demonstrations would be made and they would run. I was being beaten up. My hips, my joints. As I stand right now, something's been going on. Some people who know the lyrics, the progression. If I had added you to collaborate, you probably would have said, that girl's already been voyeurized. Or that girl's already been triggered to flash the video. It's like clockwork. I don't even know how it's happening to the rest of you. But I know that it's not always nice for your thoughts to be forced out. Or for you to suddenly start expressing somebody else's thoughts. Especially if those thoughts are getting you into trouble and you have no time to redeem yourself or to explain that no. Imagine you're suddenly false arrested because of someone else's thoughts suddenly popping out of your mouth because of the way technology has been forced through you. Imagine the live audience that they're streaming to, who are forced to, no, they may not be forced to read those captions actually. Most times, apparently, those are Hannah and Zubir's thoughts. Sometimes Zane's too. But I can't put it past the other residents. That flat is always full. So I can't put it past the residents and their visitors. I remember in the audience hearing, probably around November in 2024, Another lady who apparently had been raped. I once supported her once she was in hospital. A doctor abused her. And I tried to get her to just keep her head down, get the treatment, and then we'll address it from there. I was studying law and psychology. So we already had the testimony of a witness. We could have followed it up. We didn't always get along, but I would have been an advocate for her. And so in that audience, because most of the key leaders of the audience at any given point are people who used to know me, who've been invited to Flat for Oak House for some reason. Sometimes they stay and they're being convinced that my brain is functioning like that of a vegetable, I think. And so they're not considerate of what I am experiencing, or when they're shown the demonstrations, they choose to make fun of me instead, or they're told or shown, unfortunately, my secret writings, my secret memoirs, my secret meditations of my aspirations, and they're probably shocked because I never would have expressed that to them. For example, that lady I would have advocated for, she may not have understood that I was actually going to stand up for her. I don't think she saw that strength in me, because she had tried to bully me into silence too in high school, secondary school. She had been a head girl in Zimbabwe. So when she came over, she wanted to take over, and then she became the head girl in secondary school. Apparently, she said a few bad words about me to the headmistress, who used to always encourage me. Oh, come on, cheer up, because I was always sighing. But I was working on myself. The diaspora effect is not very easy to deal with. I quickly became a leader in the diaspora community in Forward in Faith. I was supporting a lot of people who were also transitioning and enduring the changes of coming from Zimbabwe, adapting to the UK culture, fashion trends, society norms. So I became very, very supportive, and music was my strength. Somewhat enjoyable, but quite a burnout because I was an introvert. But my muscle of endurance stretched and stretched and stretched. And once the girl I was going to advocate for, the head girl of the secondary school that I went to, once she expressed in 2024 in that live audience, when she'd been reduced to tears, she was saying Zubir Francis is very dangerous. And that's something she kept on repeating before I had moved to the RM3 area, while she was in Flat for Oak House, right next door. I think her mother used to call her and ask her why she doesn't leave the place. And she was saying, no, let me deal with it. She was crying quite often and saying, no, don't come here, let me deal with it. So when I had moved to RM3, that's when she expressed, no, Mama, Zubir Francis is a very dangerous man. You have no idea. I have to actually be abusive towards her. I don't know how she had been threatened, but as time went on, sexual activities and possibly rape had happened to her, and she had decided not to go back. Now that I've mentioned her, and I have not mentioned her name yet, Sharmaine Nganjo might be frequent in that audience. Perhaps tonight only, but who knows? She might be frequent in that audience to be presenting her rap, her abuse towards me instead. If she's wise, at some point, she will give them up. But apparently DWP was all over her quite a few times to check her for her behavior in that audience. I don't know what other experiences she's had, but probably not nursing ones. But I would encourage anyone to stand up against radicalism, because otherwise you get held up as a slave. So most people who have gone through those doors, And some people may have been new immigrants in the country, invited from Zimbabwe, invited from any other country, in the promise of getting jobs. And if that doesn't work out, you can be on universal credit. Sometimes if you find that out the hard way, and then these guys don't actually help you out or lure you into their sex ring instead, then you are actually a victim of modern slavery. You need to raise that alarm, because these guys are not protecting you. At some point when you find out that you've been dealt with a card of gonorrhea, AIDS, HIV, chlamydia, things like that, which are life-taking, which means they affect your fertility and will eventually destroy you somehow if it goes unchecked. Because once you have such a stressful encounter such as rape, fine, you can get over it, but it can mess with your mind. You need treatment, you need support. And if these guys are threatening people and you're new in the country, like I said, I stood up for a lot of people coming into the country. I invested in the Zimbabwean community. And at some point, we had a lot of people from other countries, Europe, all over the world, joining that community group. And that Forward in Faith Community Church grew all over the United Kingdom. It became quite a powerhouse. My team on stage was quite proficient. I taught them stage presence quite a lot. Summer holidays, I would get some of the teenagers to group up and I got them onto a national stage. I myself got an opportunity to be on the international stage when we were celebrating the Jubilee, 50 years in ministry or service, if that makes more sense for you. Apparently at some stage, a little girl had seen me as we'd been recorded, and she hated me for the opportunities that I was taking up of leadership, I suppose. And she plotted that she would be me. She's still trying. She celebrated when she heard that my husband had been kidnapped. She frequents that audience in the early hours of the morning after midnight. When she does that in the day, I quickly pick her up and she disappears. She does also impersonate my care coordinator, nurse Chidima, and tries to speak to my husband quite a lot. I'm still dealing with that. Wish us luck.